with Jan, and Jan is going to do a lot with sound today. But before we talk about sound, I'm going to go back to last week's topic on recycling, because I am also in Earth Day, because I have an example of something that has been recycled and reused for many years. This is a painted jar that was painted in 1948. It's a little yellowed because the varnish is worn off and the flowers are going away. But my mother-in-law's mother was an artist, so my husband's grandmother, and these were bottles that she had, and now we are using. And what we do with these bottles to make use of them is we have put the twinkle lights that you can buy that are battery operated that fit inside a jar. So these sit outside with us in the summertime or on our dining room table when it's cold out. But it's an example of recycling from way back. And then the other thing, I haven't gotten very far, but I am working on making something with the plastic bags to recycle them and reuse them. So I've started my knitted bag. Didn't get very far because I got busy with my garden and other things this week. So today we're going to talk about sound. We take sound for granted. We talk and we hear ourselves and we hear other people. And we know sound has to be able to travel because we can hear things from far away and we can hear things up close even when people are very quiet. So the first thing I want to do is to kind of get us a sense of some of the things that cause sound. So if you were to gently, and I mean gently, put your fingers on your throat down here, like bottom of your throat area, and just talk and notice what you feel while you are talking. And then try to hum a little. And what do you feel? So what we're feeling is vibration. And vibration is what sound needs to be heard. And here's another example of vibration. So I'm going to, and this is going to be tricky, but you can do this with a piece of string at home and you can see what happens. You just go, woo, and then it pull real hard and you can watch it shake a little. But even more fun way to explore vibration is to make some musical instruments. And that's what we're going to do this morning, is to make a little set of music. You can make some musical instruments. Again, recycling things from around the house. When I first made one of these little rubber band guitars, I would have been in grade school and we would have had pencil boxes that were flat and sturdy and big enough to, and you could put the rubber bands around them. Well, I don't have a pencil box. And then when I was teaching first grade, we had lots of cheese boxes. And right now I don't have a Velveeta cheese box because that also works really well for making one of these. So I had to think about what else do I have in my kitchen that would work really well for making a little guitar or a little stringed instrument. And I discovered that the containers that we can buy mushrooms in are sturdy enough plastic that we can use them for other things. So here's an example of the guitar that the stringed instrument. And so what you're going to need is a collection of rubber bands of different thicknesses. So here's my, and what's also very nice is there's grooves along the sides of the box, the mushroom container, that allows you to slide things in easily. So I've got one really thick band, and I've got another band that isn't quite as thick. So I'm going to put that one on. And then I'm going to take a really thin rubber band. So now this one is a 3-stringed instrument. And we're going to just pluck it. And we want to listen for what happens. Because again, we're going to create a vibration. And we're going to go. So why do you think the different rubber bands created different sounds? That's the thing to be thinking about. So we pluck the, and then the other thing I can do is I can take a craft stick. I'm going to use the craft stick, and I'm going to push down real hard on the rubber bands, pushing down. Did that change the sound at all? You can experiment with different places. Do the rubber band, does it make difference if you put them closer together or further apart? These are all things you can explore with vibration, and then you're getting what's called pitch. The sounds have a pitch, high, low, medium pitches. So here's another one. This is my original one, and I have more rubber bands. And when you pluck the rubber band, you can see the vibration, which is showing us that's where the sound is coming from. So we have a rubber band stringed instrument. Now, again, on the recycling bit, save those toilet paper rolls from last week, and now we're going to make a kazoo. So you need a toilet paper roll and some plastic and some wax paper. You can sometimes get this to work with tissue paper, but I have always had the best luck using pieces of wax paper. So you're going to take the wax paper and you're going to carefully fold it around the one end of the toilet paper tube. And then you're going to take a rubber band and wrap it securely around it so you've made a as tight as you can without ripping the wax paper. And now to do a little experiment to see what happens, I'm also using a paper towel tube. So now this is going to be a much longer tube. So the experiment is for us to find out whether or not there's a difference in what we hear with a long tube versus a shorter tube. Any ideas? Now we have 2 kazoos. Then this is the kazoo I made on yesterday that got the dog really upset when I was blowing into it. So now this is a real simple instrument to use. All you do is take it and you blow. So you hum something in it, and what you also, as you watch it, you're going to notice the paper, the wax paper vibrating. So now you just have kind of a high pitched sound with this short. Very similar sound, and it didn't sound as good. You have to blow really, really hard to get your breath, your sound, get the sound all the way to the end of the tube so it can vibrate. Works much better with the shorter tubes. That's at least my finding. You might find out something different. So we've got 2 instruments we've made. The rubber band stringed instrument and the kazoo. Now there's a third. We're going to now make a reed instrument. Reed instruments are some of the instruments that you might get to learn to play as you get older. Clarinets use a reed. A saxophone uses a reed. An oboe and a bassoon all use reeds. And they're all reed instruments that have different sounds based on the size of the reed and the size of the instrument. So I've got two different kinds of straws here. I have a really thick straw, and then I have a thin straw. And it doesn't matter if it's a bendy straw or a regular straw. But the first thing you have to do is pinch off a bit at the top, and you want to get it really, really flattened out. And then with a pair of scissors, very carefully, you're going to cut at an angle. So you're cutting off part of the straw. And you try to make the exact same cut on the other side of the straw, and it appears that I'm okay. And then you open it back up. Nothing worked. Well, I can tell you why. I didn't make a big enough cut. So I'm going to try this again. Some of these things take a little bit of experimenting. Well, here's one that did work yesterday. So let's see what happens today. You have to get your mouth in there just right so you can get the two pieces of the straw vibrating against one another. So I'm going to show you again. So that is one. Now here's another one that I made yesterday. Let's hope it still works today. And this is the thin straw, and it's also a fairly short straw, because what I did is I cut off some of the straw because I needed other pieces of straw for something else. Well, it takes practice. And let's see if one of my other straws from yesterday will work. So it's a matter of getting the cut bit in your mouth just right. And then, so these two made one kind of sound, and let's go back to the big one and see what the difference was in the sound. I was never a reed instrument player, so it's hard for me to kind of figure some of these things out to get it to blow just right. But with experimenting and practice, you can make a lot of different sounds just playing with a straw and your mouth again. So we're blowing into the straw, we're creating a vibration. The vibration then becomes the sound we're making. The final sound experiment that we're going to do, the final sound instrument, I should say, uses two thick craft sticks or tongue depressors, two pieces of straw that are about 1.5 inches. And depending on, I always use my thumb as a good measuring tool, but then my hands are much bigger than some of yours, but it's a good way of doing it. So now we take the we take one of our craft sticks. We take one thick rubber band. And my first mistake when I made this yesterday is I thought I had to put both craft sticks in this rubber band, and you don't. So now I have the rubber band on the craft stick. And now this is going to be called a sound sandwich. And this is how we make the sound sandwich. And sometimes this is tricky, so it also could come in handy to have a second person helping you. So we've put our first piece of straw under the rubber band so it's flat on the craft stick. This is where it gets tricky because the second one needs to go about the same place at the other end. Then you take a second craft stick and you hold everything together. So we're making a sandwich. You take a thin rubber band and you tie it. So now we've got, and I put the rubber band on the end that doesn't have the the straw sticking through. So now we've got a little floppy thing. Well, that doesn't do much. So now what we do is we take another smaller rubber band and we wind it loose about the same distance between the so everything is as equidistant as you can get it. Now this is not going to make a lot of noise. It's not going to be quite as loud and crazy as my little oboes and clarinets were. But what you do now is you take and you put your mouth here. And blow. Now it's not near as melodious as some things, but it does make a sound. And what you're noticing is what you're doing is, again, getting the rubber band to vibrate. And depending on where you are, it's going to vibrate and have a louder sound, higher pitch or a lower pitch. And you can experiment to see what happens if you move the straws in the middle. Now I made more of a sound. And then you can see what happens when you go outside of the rubber band, out of the straws. Ooh, interesting. So now what happens if I go even closer together? So these are all instruments that you can make, that you use your mouth to help you explore sound and how sound is made, how it vibrates, how you get different pitches. And another thing that we are all very familiar with that produces very nice sounds are wind chimes. And so wind chimes typically are balanced on something, they hang, and then when the wind hits them, it knocks the pipes together. And you'll hear different sounds from the different pipes. So this is something you could try experimenting with at home also, is building a wind chime. And for our final wind instrument, I'm going to do something that I used to do when I was a kid with an old Coke bottle. Because back then, most of our soft drinks, well, all of our soft drinks came in glass bottles, and the long neck of the bottle is what's very useful. And then I have some water in this bottle, and you blow. Now, this was something we used to do as we blew across while we were drinking the soda, but we don't do that so often, and it's actually quite hard to collect glass bottles that are drink bottles other than big wine bottles. So today I'm going to bring my other favorite activity experiment from long ago that's still relevant today. And I'm doing it in two forms. I found some seltzer bottles, seltzer club soda in the grocery store. And so instead of, again, throwing the bottles out, I put some water in them. And as you can see, we have differing amounts of water in the bottles, which is part of, again, exploring sound, especially pitch. You need something to hit the bottle with. You don't want to hit it too hard because it might. I don't think these will break because they're pretty sturdy, but we're going to go. And if you're a piano player or another, play another instrument, you can work to try to get the water in the bottles to make exact sounds like you would on a piano, the different keys of the piano. I'm not a musician, so I'm not going to attempt to do that. So I did this with the bottles, and the bottles have a very specific shape where they taper to the top. Now, and the sound was okay in these. The taller bottles, a little bit taller, old Pepsi bottles were, or 7-Up or whatever your favorite drink was. They worked very well. Now I've got 4 glasses. You can do the same thing. I have different amounts of water in the glasses, and all the glasses are the same size. And that's real important when you try to make your own water xylophone, because that's really what this is doing, trying to create 4 to 6 notes using the water in the glasses. And so we've got the sound's a little different than it was. This is my tallest one, tall. Just because the glasses are different. But again, we're still getting sound being produced on either using your drinking glasses or your bottles. But you do need to use glasses for this instead. Plastic and some of those other kinds of materials that we use for a lot of our drinking glasses don't work. You need the glass, because as you're hitting the glass, I'm using a knitting needle, but when you hit the glass, it's causing the sound to be produced through the water. So that is Have a Blast with Science with Jan today. We did all of these different things with sound. You can also, of course, do the favorite thing that many children have done over time, because the other thing you can do to make music is to get out your old pans and pots and beat on them. But that's not near as much. That's a lot of fun to do, but it's going to drive mom and dad crazy or grandma crazy. So be kind. Do them as experiments. Experiment with different amounts of water. Experiment with different kinds of glasses, as long as they're always the same size glass. And so have a sound blast this week. See you next week.